to the Point of Impact podcast with Rick McDaniel. Thanks for joining us today. Get ready to be inspired and motivated to live a high-impact life. Now, here's Rick.
Welcome to the Point of Impact podcast. I'm Rick McDaniel. Great to have you joining us. This is our final episode of the season. I think it's episode maybe 187, something like that, 188. We're going to finish what will be season 5, and exciting. Thankful for all you folks that have listened and all the good things that have happened. So last episode, I'm going to do something special. I did a kind of a speech / interview on marriage, 3 keys to a successful marriage, and we're going to play that for you today. That'll be the audio from that. You'll be able to hear that. That'll be today's final podcast of the season. Marriage is challenging. I've been married for a long time, so I've been through just about every season of marriage that you can be through over the years in terms of decades of marriage, and married without kids, married with young kids, married with teenagers, married with kids out of the home, married with grandkids. I mean, it's the whole deal. So I've got a lot to share with you. I think it will be very, very helpful to you if you listen to these 3 keys. They're gold. You will never get divorced. I'm telling you, if you just follow these 3 keys, it just won't happen. It's just that simple. They're research-backed. Years of research, years of data, experience, put it all together. It's the slam dunkaroo. Now, again, knowing is not the same thing as doing. So knowing what they are and doing them are 2 different things. But if you do them, you'll be happily married, not just married, happily married. So I'm looking forward to sharing this with you. Just a couple other things about coming to the end of the season. One thought is, hey, go back and listen. When you're talking about close to 200, not quite, but close to 200 episodes, some of you, you may be new to the party and you're like, I could go back. Yeah, you could go back and listen. I mean, there's one of the early episodes I did on success is still one of the all-time most listened to episodes. So you could go back and listen to those. I will just say this one thing very quickly. About the first season, we had all kinds of audio problems. We finally had to bring in an expert to fix it. The audio quality is not good as it is now, but it's not so bad that you can't listen. You'll just be like, well, this doesn't sound the same. And you'll know you're listening to the earlier part of this podcast in terms of seasons and episodes. But I just go back and check out some of the previous episodes on all kinds of topics that I think you will find very, very helpful and very, very beneficial. So just go back during this hiatus. Go back. During this hiatus, I'm going to be doing, those of you that listen know I do a lot of travel, been to like 40 countries, all 50 states, 6 continents, and I'll be, at least as it is planned now, be in 4 different states. I'll be in 4 different countries over this summer break that we have between season 5 and season 6. I hope to come back with lots of great stories that will be helpful to you, that will be inspirational to you. So as it stands now, that's my plans. Could add a few more states. Don't plan on adding any more countries, but maybe a few more states to that as well. We'll see. But that's what I'll be doing, and looking forward to collecting a lot of good stuff that I can bring back to you in season 6. I would also say that one thing that I will continue to do is to be very faithful on social. At Rick McDaniel on X or Twitter, Rick McDaniel _official on Instagram, Rick McDaniel HIL on Facebook. So I would just encourage you, I post like every day except Saturday, so I just encourage you to check it out. And you can still get lots of great inspirational content from me through the social media channels. So keep up with all the good stuff that is going to be out there on social media that I'll be putting out during the time that we'll be on our break, our hiatus, whatever you want to call it, between season 5 and season 6 of the Point of Impact podcast. And finally, I would just say thank you to all of the loyal, devoted listeners. Appreciate so much you listening. Hope it is beneficial. Always, by all means, share this podcast on your social media, in your personal interactions with folks. Always appreciate that. 5-star ratings, great reviews, people describing why they listen, what's beneficial to them. Always very appreciative. But thank you for listening. I enjoy doing it, and I'll miss it while we take our break, but I'll come back with a lot of good stuff for the new season. So here is this message now, 3 keys to a successful marriage.
Well, welcome back. We're here with Rick McDaniel. He's a pastor, a speaker, a church founder, and the president of High Impact Living. Welcome, Rick. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, great to be with you.
I'm excited to talk about the 3 keys to a successful marriage.
Yeah, me too, because it's years of research and experience, and I'm telling you, they are keys. If you practice them, you'll be happily married.
Ah, wonderful. Well, tell the audience a little bit about when you say research and experience, tell them what you mean by that.
So I, of course, for years as a pastor, worked with couples and prepared couples for marriage, and I have 2 graduate research degrees. So I'm a researcher by training. And so I went into the research, and I'll share much of that with you today, of major research that's been done about marriage. And then I just kind of culminated all of it and came up with these 3 keys that if you practice them, it's highly, highly likely that you will have a very happy and successful marriage.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yes, I'm excited. There are some key things in building a healthy, strong marriage. So let's talk about the 5-1 rule that you have.
Yeah, so the University of Minnesota does a 20-year study of marriage. And, it's this big. So how about if I boil it all down for you very simply?
Cliff Note version.
Yes, Cliff Note version. And here it is. You need 5 positive for every 1 negative interactions in order for a marriage to be successful. Gary Smalley would talk about it like deposits and withdrawals, So if you use that mentality, you got to deposit 5 times for 1 withdrawal. And it's so simple that you can just understand it. Now, where a lot of people miss it is they think like, oh, we have to do this romantic weekend and then that's 1 deposit. But actually, in a romantic weekend, there could be 10 deposits. So in one big thing, you can add up a lot of smaller things. That's the good news. Yeah. Here's the bad news. It only takes 1 harsh word or 1, quick temper, and, you can have one of those negatives, one of those withdrawals versus deposits. So I just think it's really helpful for couples because you can just sort of self-score, like, how are we doing? And I would just say, if you're running into some rubs in your marriage and you're having some difficulties, the first thing you just ask yourself is, I wonder what our ratio is right now of positives to negatives, of deposits to withdrawals. And I think what you'll find is that it's not 5-1.
Right. Absolutely. And that's huge. So let's talk a little bit about what might these deposits or these positives look like. So we've identified it doesn't mean a weekend away, right? What does it mean?
Yeah, well, it can mean a weekend away. It's just in the weekend away, there'll be so many because like in a weekend away, for instance, which I'm a big proponent of, by the way, that's why I bring it up. I think couples miss it here many times. I also will put and I really believe in putting the onus on the husband and the wife. So I'm equal. But in this case, I feel like many times men should take a lead here and do this for their wife. And you can have the conversation and communication, just the 2 of you in the car on the way to the beach or the mountains or the lake. And that can be very positive. And then you can just have like the compliments that come from getting dressed up for dinner and looking beautiful and nice words are spoken. And then you can have the intimacy that happens sort of at the end of that evening. And, there you go. You're on your way to some very, very, very positive things happening. But again, a positive can just be a compliment.
Sure.
You know, a positive can be a hug and embrace when one person is, just sharing some of their difficulties or challenges. So they don't have to be gigantic, but they can be. And there's nothing wrong with swinging. You know, I think you can swing for the fences for baseball people and try to hit home runs. And that's great. But singles and doubles will get you around the bases too.
Yeah. Well, and you can swing for the fences and still not win the game. So,
yes.
So let's look at, because when we're looking at building in these positive, yes, those big weekends away are so important. I agree with you on that. It's like stop life and just take time. And I also really think it's important to take time, stop life and take time daily in some capacity where the rest of the world goes away. But I think when we're looking at these positive deposits, there's research around too, this idea of praise, right? We don't want to be like, oh, you're awesome. That can leave the relationship more insecure because you start wondering, what is it that's awesome about me, right? But the flip side is being specific with your praise.
Yeah.
Let that praise be, yes, in a romantic relationship, definitely about beauty and affection and those kinds of things, but also about personhood. I love the way that you're patient with little Johnny when he's doing his homework. I love the way that you think about the fact that we need to prepare for that vacation next week, fill in the blank, but something very specific will be powerful. It will be one of those powerful 5 positives that you build in.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on a power principle, as I would call it, which is specificity. And that applies to exactly what you're talking about. Also applies to things like prayer, like God bless me. No, be specific what you're asking God for. And there's just power in specificity. So absolutely, I'm with you.
Yeah. Well, then you also talk about meeting the top 2 needs. So what do you mean by that?
Well, there's all kinds of research about needs and meeting needs and his needs, her needs, and all kinds of stuff, lists of needs. But here's what I just absolutely believe to be true. No mentally well or mentally healthy person has ever left a relationship, a marriage, when their top needs are being met. It's counter. People do not leave. They leave when their needs are not being met. They do not leave when their needs are being met. So I say to couples, before you get married, you must identify and communicate with one another your top 2 needs. Before you get married, like I could quiz you on the wedding day, 5 minutes before the ceremony. What are they? If you get them wrong, you don't get to be married. That'll put a little fear of God into people. But it's just, so again, things like honesty, respect, security, intimacy, companionship, affection, encouragement, attention, things like that. And there are, again, depends on whose list you're looking at. They can be 8, 10, 20. What I have learned is you can't, like I'll do a pre-marriage with couples. I don't do many marriages anymore, but earlier in my career, I did a lot of them, a lot. And I would be 1 to 7 or 1 to 5. And sometimes there'd be like 6 at the top end, and I realized this isn't going to work. Someone cannot meet 6 different needs. So I feel like 2 is a good number, like you've got to meet these are like the 2. I just really have to have honesty. I just really have to have respect. I just really have to have security. I just really have to have intimacy, affection. I just won't be able to be happy without these basic needs being met.
Yeah. Well, and for the audience members who are listening, and I do love the 2 versus the 5, right? So we might be able to hit the mark on 5 from time to time, sure. But with consistency, to be something to be able to be counted on, that takes Okay, what's my focus, right? The narrow the focus. So with those two things, for the people who are listening, whether they've been married 20 years, whether they're dating and considering getting married, what would you say is the effective way of determining the top two needs?
For yourself or for the other person?
Yeah, for yourself.
For yourself. Yeah, for yourself, I think you need to read a list. You need some kind of list that you can look at, like the list I've just given. And then just really, just ask yourself, like, well, I'd like to have that, and I'd like to have that. Well, yeah, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, my mom would say, we'd all be happy. So we can't have it all. But what do you just absolutely just have to have in order? For instance, I have found, this is just years of hundreds of couples. This is what I found, that for many women, it is honesty and security. And for many men, it is respect and intimacy. But that is by no means, something exclusive. If you look at the book, His Needs, Her Needs, it gives 5 for men, 5 for women that tend to go that way. But again, out of those 5, you got to ask yourself, what are the things that just absolutely matter to me the most? That I feel like it's not like I want these things. I really need these things in order for this relationship to work.
Yes. Well, and as you're talking about his needs, her needs, and those types of things, there's people are different, right? So we're created uniquely in the image of God, and each of us have our own little flavor of that. And because the books, and this is always what I love to just caution people, because the books will say, this is what men need, this is what women need, this is how a woman is, this is how a man is. There's always an exception to the rule.
Sure.
I want to just remove any thoughts of what's wrong with me. Is there shame here? I see this a lot for women who have a need for that physical intimacy. And then they feel like there's something wrong with them because their spouse is the lower drive partner. So I really want you to encourage you to, the listener, to really think in terms of, what I'm hearing you saying, you can tell me if this is correct, but like kind of brain dump all the needs that you might feel like you need, and then prioritize the top 2 on that list. And what you said, though, anecdotally about men and women is there's some research around the neurobiology of the woman's brain, that they are more attuned to danger and threat than a man's brain. Well, that would correlate very much with your observations of security, right?
Yeah, it's really good that you point that out about intimacy, because I would say over the course of my career, I have seen a marked difference. And I do believe it has to do with many cultural factors, where women are more aware and maybe more willing to talk about the physical side of the relationship and their desire, interest in it. And I've definitely watched that change over the years. And so there's perfectly normal, perfectly healthy, and nothing wrong with that at all. And as you say, the problem with generalities is they are just that. They are generally, they don't apply to everyone in every situation. And again, general could be 55%, which leaves a large percentage that don't fit into that. So yeah, you don't want to, you listen to what I say and my just experience, but that can, again, it's been changing over the years. I have seen, a difference for sure.
Yeah. Well, and as you're talking about, you talk to couples before they get married and talk about their top 2 needs. Would you say it's fair to say that, over the course of a 50-year marriage, you see people, maybe their top 2 needs shift?
Yes. I almost wanted to do a whole topic on that today about the stages of marriage, because yes, there are stages in marriage. And yeah, you're right. There can be changes where it's just different for different reasons. And not to bang on this one drum too much, but even something like with women in the childbearing years and kind of that, even though there's birth control and everything, still that sense of like potential of pregnancy. And then once that kind of passes, how that kind of can free things up a little bit, because that burden, just the awareness of that, the gravity of it, of what it could be, creating life and responsibility and all that goes away, as an example. But there are certainly many other examples of how changes in just life and what life brings you causes. When I was in graduate school, I wrote a paper on the changes in a marriage when a child is born. And I did that because my wife had just become pregnant. And I'm like, I'm going to make this research work for me in my life as well as my schooling. And, it was really remarkable. There was only one of 5 in which men and women shared in the change. And those 5 for men, 5 for women. And the only one was loss of sleep. Other than that, the changes were unique to the husband and the wife. So children, yes. And then when children leave the home, and changes for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So the message there is, when you're discovering the top 2, be willing to reevaluate, be willing to look at things. And it might be an overt time that, empty nest or, childbirth or something like that. And it may be a settled time. And that's where it's so important to be willing to advocate for what it is that you need, to speak up. Your partner can't meet a need that you don't talk about.
Communicate, right. Yes. Yeah. Yes, which is when a weekend away can be good, or a vacation, just the 2 of you. And it's like, you know what? I just got to tell you that I really do think that in this area of my life now, I said this need, but now it's more this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So good. So good. So talk a little bit about this mind, body, spirit principle.
Okay. This sort of third key. So this is fascinating because it's research. George Barna, well-known Christian researcher, the preeminent one, really. And he does more of a polling type of research. So when we think of polls, we think of politics, but there's polls for all kinds of things. So here's what he did. He got couples who had been married for at least 25 years. And then this is key, self-identified as happily married.
Okay.
So this is the group. Long married and happily married. And then they were polled. And what came out of that were 3 very fascinating insights that line up in sort of a mind, body, spirit. Okay, so let's start with the mind. Couples 25 years or more, happily married, communicate well. They just simply have good communication. That you can't be happily married and not communicate well. So that's sort of the mind part. And then the body part was 25 plus years happily married. They have a satisfying sex life. So their sexual intimacy is satisfying to them. They're pleased with it. They're connected. And then the third spirit is that couples, again, happily married for a long time, have a shared spirituality. So they attend church together, they pray together, they discuss spiritual things, Bible verses, devotions, all those sorts of things. And I'm always looking for who's done it successfully.
Sure.
And then why reinvent the wheel? Sure. So here's what we know. If you want to be long time happily married, communicate well, have a satisfying sex life, and have a shared spiritual life, and you should have the same results as the people who are long time married happily.
Yeah, and there's so much. I love this. This is a great key, and there's so much to it, right?
Yes.
Because communication, there's so, I can give you a list of tools and they could not work for you because you've got to be, well integrated with yourself and able to actually articulate what's going on and why. Yes. Right. And then the sex life might look like once a month, and it might look like 3 times a day. It depends on the couple, right? Yes. It depends on, And here's something too in the body, in that satisfaction, just looking at the holistic picture, that it's not just about perfunctory kind of like get it done, but what's the whole picture of how does it fit into the relationship,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
And then of course the spiritual. I mean, we have how many denominations? We could have a 21-day series on the spiritual, but being able to bring that together. So there's so many different facets of each of those, but I love this. This is, I did not know about the Barna research on this, and that's fantastic. So good and so holistic, which is really the way to create a healthy, strong marriage.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just a huge believer in I do this in my podcast where I'll do, 10, habits of successful people. And, you just go down the list and you just look at the people, these names and what they've been able to accomplish, and this is what they do. So let's just do the same things they're doing, and you can have the same results that, and of course, from a Christian perspective, the Bible gives you the principles, if you practice the principles, they will lead you to a successful life because you do the things that will lead there and have led there for 2,000 years.
Yes, absolutely. So you have a fantastic gift for the audience to help them as individuals as they bring together as a couple. So tell us a little bit about the 5 habits of a.
Yeah, so my ministry for years was as a pastor, and now I lead High Impact Living, which is essentially speaking and writing, inspirational speaking and writing. And so I just love to encourage people and to motivate them, inspire them. And one of the subjects that people always talk about is I want to be happy. And so I did my research and I came up with 5 habits of happy people. And so we have this book, this little infographic book, really cool. It's just really neat. It's not just words on a page, it's graphics and different things on the 5 habits of happy people. And again, the proof's in the pudding. If you practice these 5 habits, you will be a happy person. So, I love to give that away to folks so that they can have it and learn what those 5 habits are, and then practice them in their life so they can be happy.
Sounds fantastic. Well, it's a very generous gift, and I look forward to seeing all the images. And I just appreciate you sharing your time and your wisdom here today. I know that whoever's been listening has really gotten a lot of value out of it.
Well, it's great to be with you. I've been married a long time myself. I've had over 30 years. I've had years of working with couples, and, happy marriages are so satisfying and so foundational. Unhappy marriages cause so much challenge and stress in life. And so trying to avoid unhappiness and struggles and ultimately the worst result of divorce, and working toward a happy marriage is something that is worth the effort. And I will say this, because I literally say this at the weddings when I marry couples. I say, this is the most unromantic thing you could ever say at a wedding, but I'm going to say it, and here it is. Marriage is a lot of hard work. So at the end of the day, these principles, these keys work, but it requires your effort. I'm a former athlete, and I can tell you, you've never been in a locker room where a coach doesn't say, give me your best effort and we can win. Give me your best effort in your marriage and you can have a happy marriage.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you already mentioned, the unhappy marriage, I mean, that's a whole nother conversation we could have about the research on the impact of the physical, emotional, spiritual health of something unhappy marriage. And so, yes, do the hard work, take these lessons and put them into practice. Again, thank you so much, Rick. I appreciate it.
Great to be with you.
You've been listening to the Point of Impact podcast with Rick McDaniel. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to you joining us for our next episode.